The thing about corporate parties is they're like funerals. Everyone pretends to care, but we're all just waiting for the free drinks. I stood on the rooftop of Morrison and Associates, watching Chicago's skyline twinkle like broken promises, nursing my third bourbon and wondering when my marriage had become as stale as the catered shrimp. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Lucas, you look thrilled to be here," my wife Amber said, appearing beside me with that photographer's eye that missed nothing and forgave less. She looked stunning in her black dress, the kind that used to make me forget my own name. Now it just reminded me of all the ways I'd disappointed her. "Just living the dream, sweetheart." I raised my glass toward the crowd of advertising executives pretending their campaigns mattered. Nothing says successful marriage like standing 3 feet apart at a party. Amber's jaw tightened. "Maybe if you made an effort with my colleagues instead of sulking in corners." Before I could respond, Reed Blackstone materialized like a bad rash. Creative director, my wife's boss, and the kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits to make up for his personality deficit. He had that practiced smile that probably worked on clients and apparently worked on my wife, judging by how her face lit up. "Amber, there's my star photographer." Reed's voice carried that fake enthusiasm that made my teeth itch. "The Morrison campaign shots are incredible. You've got real talent." "Thank you, Reed. That means everything coming from you." Amber's voice had a warmth I hadn't heard directed at me in months. Reed's eyes flicked to me like I was something stuck to his shoe. "Lucas, right? Amber's mentioned you work in... what was it? Account management?" "Senior account manager," I corrected, knowing it sounded defensive. "I handle the Morrison account you're so impressed with." Right. Reed waved dismissively. "The business side. Important stuff, I'm sure." He turned back to Amber, effectively erasing me from the conversation. "We should discuss the Henderson project. Are you free for dinner tomorrow?" I watched my wife nod eagerly, watched Reed's hand linger on her arm, watched the little spark in her eyes that used to be reserved for me. The bourbon burned, but not as much as the realization that I was becoming a stranger in my own life. "You know," Reed said, loud enough for the nearby group to hear, "Amber could do so much better than... well." He gestured vaguely in my direction, then laughed like he'd made the world's funniest joke. The conversation around us died. I felt every eye turn our way, saw the mixture of embarrassment and cruel amusement on faces I'd known for years. Amber's cheeks flushed red, but she didn't defend me. She just stood there, frozen. Something cold and sharp crystallized in my chest. I set down my glass and smiled, the kind of smile that made smart people nervous. "You're absolutely right, Reed." My voice carried clearly across the rooftop. Amber deserves someone with real vision, someone who doesn't mistake a receding hairline for executive presence, someone who can satisfy a woman without needing a sports car to compensate for creative shortcomings. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Reed's face went from smug to purple in record time. "Of course," I continued, warming to my theme, "she'd have to find someone who isn't already married to his own reflection. But hey, dream big, right?" Someone snorted with laughter, then another. Reed looked around desperately as his audience turned on him, their expressions shifting from embarrassment to entertainment. "Lucas," Amber's voice was quiet. "Apologize now." I looked at my wife, really looked at her, at the way she stood closer to Reed than to me, at the guilt written across her features, at the wedding ring she kept twisting around her finger like it didn't fit anymore. "No," I said simply. "I don't think I will." "Then we're done." Amber's words hit like a slap. "We're over, Lucas. This marriage is over." I nodded slowly, feeling something break free inside my chest. Not my heart. That had been breaking slowly for months. This was different. This was the sound of chains snapping. "Funny thing about over, Amber." I picked up my bourbon and drained it. "Sometimes it's just getting started." I walked away from the rooftop, from the whispers, from my wife and her boss who thought they were so clever. The elevator doors closed on Amber's shocked face, and I felt lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed 3 hours later. A text from Amber. "You'd better fix this. Or else." I stared at those words, sitting in my car outside our apartment building, and started to laugh. Or else what? She'd ruin my marriage? Destroy my happiness? Too late for that. I typed back, "Or else what, exactly?" Her response came immediately. "You'll find out." That's when I knew for certain what I'd only suspected. My wife was sleeping with Reed Blackstone, and they thought they held all the cards. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next 3 weeks played out like a bad movie. Amber worked later, came home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine, and treated our conversations like hostage negotiations. She'd moved into the guest room temporarily, which we both knew was permanent. I started paying attention, really paying attention. 20 years in advertising teaches you to read people, to spot the tells that reveal what they're really selling. Amber was selling a lie, and she was terrible at it. Tuesday morning, she claimed she had an early shoot. I followed her to the Fairmont Hotel and watched through the lobby windows as she met Reed for breakfast. They sat close, his hand covering hers across the table. When he kissed her goodbye, it wasn't the peck you'd give a colleague. Wednesday, she said she was working late on photo editing. Reed's car was parked outside our building when I came home from drinks with my friend Vic. I sat in my car for 2 hours, watching Reed leave at midnight, straightening his tie like a teenager sneaking out. Thursday, I found the receipt. Amber had always been careless with paperwork, and she'd left her purse open on the kitchen counter. Victoria's Secret, $200, purchased the day before Reed's car visit. I'd never seen the lingerie, which meant it wasn't meant for me. Friday morning, I made my decision. Vic, I called my oldest friend, the one person who'd stood by me through college, my father's passing, and every career disaster. I need a favor. What kind of favor? Viktor Petrov had emigrated from Russia 15 years ago and still approached American problems with old-world directness, the kind that requires your particular skill set and complete discretion. Vic ran a small tech consulting firm, which was corporate speak for, I can hack anything you need hacked. Not illegal stuff. Vic was too smart for that, but he knew how to find information people thought they'd hidden. Amber? He asked. Amber and Reed. Ah. Vic's voice carried satisfaction. I wondered when you would stop pretending not to see. What do you need? Everything. Phone records, credit cards, hotel receipts, emails, anything that proves what they're doing. This will take time, and it will cost you. How much? Not money, my friend. This will cost you your marriage. I looked around our apartment, at the photos of happier times, at the life we'd built together. I think that ship has already sailed. Then we begin tomorrow. That weekend, Amber announced she was going to a photography conference in Milwaukee. Reed, she mentioned casually, would be there too, something about coordinating future projects. They'd be staying at the same hotel, the Pfister, for 3 days. I smiled and wished her luck. Monday morning, while Amber was supposedly attending seminars, I received a package from Vic. Photos of them entering the hotel together, room service receipts for champagne and strawberries delivered to Reed's suite, credit card records showing they'd split everything 50-50 like a real couple. But the prize was the email Vic had recovered from Reed's deleted folder, sent to Amber 2 weeks after the rooftop party. Can't stop thinking about last night. Lucas looked so pathetic when he tried to defend himself. You're right. You deserve so much better. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. The Henderson Project gives us the perfect excuse for the Milwaukee trip. 3 days, just us. I've already booked the suite. R. Amber's response was even better. I know I should feel guilty, but I don't. You make me feel alive again. Lucas has become this bitter, sarcastic shell of the man I married. He doesn't appreciate what he has. You do. See you in Milwaukee, darling. A. I read those emails 3 times, waiting for the pain to hit. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Relief. The uncertainty was over. The wondering, the second-guessing, the gaslighting, all of it could stop now. I had proof, and proof was power. I called my lawyer first, then my bank. By the time Amber returned from her conference on Wednesday, I'd already filed for divorce and frozen our joint accounts. The papers were sitting on the kitchen table next to her favorite coffee mug. She found me in the living room, reading a book like it was any other evening. What is this? She held up the divorce papers, her face pale. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I turned a page without looking up, though I suppose reading comprehension was never your strong suit. Lucas, we can work this out. The party was nothing. I finally looked at her, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, married for 5. The party was just when I stopped pretending not to see what was right in front of me. I don't know what you think you know, but I know about Milwaukee. I know about the Pfister Hotel. I know about Reed's suite and the champagne and the fact that you split the bill like the happy couple you think you are. Amber's face went white, then red, then white again. You had me followed? I had you investigated. There's a difference. I set down my book and smiled. The difference is evidence. You bastard! Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm the bastard? I'm not the one who's been lying for months. I'm not the one who moved my lover into our marriage bed. I'm not the one who stood there while her boss humiliated her husband in public. Reed was drunk. He didn't mean... Reed meant every word, and so did you when you didn't defend me, and so did I when I decided to stop being the fool in this little drama. Amber sank into the chair across from me, the divorce papers crumpled in her fist. What do you want? I want you gone. Tonight, you can stay with Reed. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to have you full-time instead of just for stolen afternoons. And if I don't go? I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. Reed's email was displayed in all its pathetic glory. Then everyone gets to read about your photography conference. Your agent, your clients, Reed's wife, the entire Morrison and Associates staff directory. I've got them all queued up and ready to send. Amber stared at the phone like it was a snake. You wouldn't. Try me. She was gone within the hour, but I was just getting started. Reed Blackstone made two critical mistakes. First, he underestimated me. Second, he forgot that I'd been working in advertising longer than he'd been pretending to be creative. The morning after Amber moved out, I implemented what I like to call the reputation destruction campaign. Every good campaign needs multiple channels, consistent messaging, and perfect timing. Channel 1 was social media. I created anonymous accounts and started posting in the advertising industry forums where Reed liked to show off. Nothing actionable, just questions that made people think. Anyone else notice how Reed Blackstone's best work coincides with projects his photographer girlfriend works on? Weird how creative directors can afford Maseratis on agency salaries these days. Channel 2 was workplace gossip. I had lunch with Jesse Martinez, Reed's assistant, who'd always been friendly to me. Jesse was ambitious, hardworking, and getting tired of Reed taking credit for his ideas. You know, I mentioned casually over sandwiches, Reed seems pretty close with Amber these days. Jesse's expression darkened. Too close, if you ask me. Which nobody does, because I'm just the assistant. What do you mean? I mean, I'm the one who books his hotel rooms and makes his dinner reservations. I'm the one who covers for him when he's in meetings that aren't on his calendar. I'm the one who has to listen to him brag about his conquests like we're in some fraternity. I leaned forward. Conquests? Your wife isn't his first affair, Lucas. She's just the most recent. That was information I could use. Channel 3 was direct action. I knew Reed's patterns, where he parked, where he ate lunch, where he went to feel important. Wednesday afternoon, I waited by his precious Maserati with a key in my hand and murder in my heart. The scratch ran from bumper to bumper, a perfect straight line that would cost thousands to fix. I left a note under his windshield wiper. She could do better, so could your car. A concerned colleague. Reed found the note and the scratch an hour later. I watched from the coffee shop across the street as he screamed at the parking attendant, as if some minimum wage worker was responsible for his karma catching up with him. But the real masterpiece was Channel 4, the wife. Heather Blackstone was everything Amber wasn't, loyal, trusting, completely devoted to her husband of 15 years. She deserved to know what kind of man she'd married. I didn't approach her directly. That would have been cruel and obvious. Instead, I mailed her copies of the emails, the hotel receipts, and a few choice photos Vic had obtained. No return address, no explanation needed. Heather filed for divorce the next day. Reed's world started crumbling faster than I dared hope. His wife kicked him out, his car was vandalized, his reputation was under attack, and his assistant was asking uncomfortable questions about his expense reports. Friday evening, he cornered me in the parking garage. "You son of a jerk," Reed's voice echoed off the concrete walls. "I know this was you." I looked up from my phone, where I'd been reading the latest industry forum post about his suspicious expense account. "I'm sorry. What was me?" The car, the emails to my wife, the rumors. All of it. Reed, I think you're being paranoid. Maybe the stress of your divorce is getting to you." He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his height advantage. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won something?" "I think I've learned something," I said calmly. "I've learned that actions have consequences. You humiliated me in public, you seduced my wife, you treated me like I was invisible. Now you're discovering that invisible doesn't mean powerless. You destroyed my marriage. No, Reed. You destroyed your marriage when you decided to sleep with other men's wives. I just made sure your wife found out about it." He raised his fist like he was going to hit me. I didn't flinch. "Go ahead," I said quietly. "Assault me in a parking garage with security cameras everywhere. I'm sure that'll help your custody battle." Reed looked around, finally noticing the cameras, and lowered his hand. "This isn't over," he said. "You're right," I agreed. "It's not. But I was wrong about one thing. I thought I knew all of Reed's secrets. Jesse Martinez called me that weekend with information that changed everything. "Lucas, we need to talk. In person. There's something about Reed you need to know." We met at a diner in Chinatown, far from anyone we knew. "Reed's been bragging," Jesse said without preamble, "about Amber, about how he stole her from you, about how easy it was." I figured as much. But that's not all he's been bragging about. Jesse leaned across the table. "He's been bragging about me, too." I stared at him. "What?" "Reed and I have been involved for 6 months. He told me Amber was just for fun, that I was the one he really cared about. He promised he'd leave his wife for me." The diner suddenly felt very quiet. "You're telling me Reed was cheating on his wife with both you and Amber?" And neither of us knew about the other until now. Jesse's voice was bitter. "He played us both, told us both we were special, that we were the only ones who understood him." I sat back in my booth, processing this information. Reed wasn't just a cheater, he was a serial manipulator who'd been juggling multiple relationships like some kind of sociopathic circus act. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of being his dirty little secret. Because he used me the same way he used your wife. Because I want him to pay for what he's done to all of us." Jesse reached into his bag and pulled out a tablet. I recorded everything. Every conversation, every promise, every lie. I've got videos, audio files, text messages, everything. I looked at the screen Jesse showed me. Reed's face filled the frame, talking about his collection of conquests, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate people who trusted him. "What do you want to do with this?" I asked. Jesse smiled, and for the first time since I'd known him, it wasn't a nice smile. "I want to destroy him. Completely. Publicly. Are you in?" I thought about Amber, about Reed's smug face at the party, about months of lies and humiliation. "I'm in." The final phase of the campaign was about to begin. Monday morning, Reed Blackstone walked into Morrison & Associates for the last time, though he didn't know it yet. Jesse had done his homework. As Reed's assistant, he had access to everything. Reed's calendar, his email, his presentation files, even his social media accounts. More importantly, he had access to the conference room AV system. Reed had a major presentation that day, pitching the Henderson account to a room full of executives and potential clients. It was his chance to prove he was still the creative genius Morrison & Associates couldn't afford to lose, despite his messy personal life. I arrived early and positioned myself in the back of the conference room. Amber was there too. She'd been contracted to provide photography for the campaign. She avoided my eyes, sitting close to the front where Reed would be presenting. At exactly 10 a.m., Reed strode into the room with his usual arrogance intact. He'd recovered some of his swagger over the weekend, probably convincing himself that he could weather this storm like he'd weathered others. "Ladies and gentlemen," Reed began, clicking to his first slide, "today I'm going to show you why the Henderson account represents the future of our industry." The slide that appeared wasn't about Henderson. It was a photo of Reed and Amber entering the Pfister Hotel in Milwaukee, his hand on her lower back, both of them laughing at some private joke. Reed's face went white. He clicked frantically to the next slide. This one was worse. It was a screenshot of his email to Amber. "Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore." "Technical difficulties," Reed stammered, reaching for his laptop. But Jesse had locked him out of the system. The third slide was audio, Reed's voice, crystal clear through the conference room speakers. "The best part about married women is they're so grateful for attention. Amber practically threw herself at me after that party. Her husband's such a pathetic loser. She was desperate for a real man." Amber made a sound like she'd been slapped. Every head in the room turned to look at her, then at me, then back at the screen where Reed's humiliation continued. The fourth slide was video, Reed and Jesse in Reed's office, Reed's hands all over his assistant while he bragged about his stable of women and how easy it was to manipulate people who trusted him. "Turn it off," Reed shouted, lunging for the AV controls. But Jesse had disabled those too. The presentation continued for another 5 minutes. Every lie, every manipulation, every cruel joke at the expense of people who trusted him. The room sat in stunned silence as Reed's true character played out in high definition. When it finally ended, the silence stretched like a held breath. Morrison himself stood up slowly. "Reed, I think you should clean out your office." "Sir, I can explain." "No." Morrison's voice was ice cold. "I don't think you can. Security will escort you out." Reed looked around the room desperately, searching for an ally. His eyes found mine in the back row. "This was you," he said, his voice carrying clearly in the silent room. "You orchestrated this whole thing." I stood up slowly, every eye in the room on me. Reed, I think you're confused. I didn't make those recordings. I didn't send those emails. I didn't cheat on my wife or manipulate my assistant or humiliate people who trusted me. You destroyed my life. No, Reed, you destroyed your own life. I just made sure everyone got to see what you'd done. Security arrived then. 2 large men who escorted Reed from the building while he screamed threats and accusations. The conference room remained silent until the elevator doors closed behind him. Then, slowly, people began to whisper, then to talk, then to laugh. Amber fled during the chaos, but I caught up with her in the parking lot. Lucas, please. Please what, Amber? Please pretend this didn't happen. Please forgive you for lying to me for months. Please take you back after you humiliated me in front of everyone I work with. I made a mistake. Reed manipulated me. You heard him say it? Reed didn't manipulate you into moving into the guest room. He didn't manipulate you into lying about Milwaukee. He didn't manipulate you into standing there silent while he insulted me at that party. Amber was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. What do you want from me? I want you to understand something, I said quietly. You told me we were over. You told me this marriage was over. You were right. But we could try again. We could go to counseling. We could... No, Amber, we couldn't, because I don't love you anymore. The words hung in the air between us, more final than any divorce decree. You don't mean that. I do. I love the woman I married, the woman who would have defended me, who would have been honest with me, who wouldn't have betrayed everything we built together. That woman doesn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. Amber stared at me like I was a stranger. You're not the man I married either. The Lucas I married would never have done something this cruel. You're right, I agreed. The Lucas you married was a fool who let people walk all over him, who made excuses for his wife's coldness and his boss's disrespect, who convinced himself that keeping the peace was more important than keeping his dignity. I started walking toward my car, then stopped and looked back. That Lucas is gone, Amber. You eliminated him at that party when you chose Reed over me. What's left is someone who fights back. I drove away and left her standing in the parking lot, crying over the ruins of the life she'd thrown away. But I still wasn't finished. That evening, I uploaded everything to social media. The emails, the recordings, the hotel receipts, all of it with a simple caption. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Here's who Reed Blackstone really is. It went viral within hours. Reed's name became synonymous with workplace harassment and manipulation. His reputation in the advertising industry was permanently destroyed. Amber's photography business collapsed when her clients learned about her role in the scandal. Her agent dropped her. Her professional network evaporated overnight. Jesse found a new job at a competing agency where his real talents were finally recognized without Reed taking credit for them. And me? I got promoted to creative director, taking over Reed's old position and his corner office. 6 months later, I was having drinks with Vic when he asked the question I'd been waiting for. Do you regret it? Any of it? I looked out the window of the bar, watching Chicago's lights twinkle in the distance, and thought about the question seriously. I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it, I said finally. I regret wasting years of my life on a marriage that was already over. I regret not standing up for myself sooner. But the revenge? The destruction of their lives? I smiled and raised my glass. Reed said Amber could do better than me. He was wrong. I could do better than both of them. And I did. So what's next for Lucas, the destroyer of worlds? Next, I build something new, something honest, something that can't be taken away by people who mistake kindness for weakness. I finished my drink and stood up. The old Lucas would have forgiven them, would have tried to save a marriage that was already over, would have let Reed continue his games, but that Lucas is gone. And the new Lucas? I smiled one last time, thinking about Reed working at a small firm in Wisconsin, about Amber living in her sister's spare room, about the life I was building from the ashes of their betrayal. The new Lucas remembers that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their own choices. I walked out into the Chicago night, free from the weight of other people's lies, ready for whatever came next.